Chapter 111. Don't think too much of it. Release, get rid of and destroy it. It's up to you. George Ken's smile was calm. Karen Daly did not understand what George Ken was referring to. She looked up at him quietly, and he continued. Don't be so serious. Let me tell you a joke. I met a person a few days ago. He claimed to be the illegitimate child of the Gook family. He had been saying he wants to destroy Gook Corp. I suspect that he has paranoia. An idea flashed through Karen Daly's mind. She narrowed her eyes and looked at George Ken warily. Who the hell are you? Why are you helping me? George Ken smiled again, revealing his white and neat teeth. Your psychiatrist, a doctor who treats your issues and shares your worries. Is there anything wrong? Karen Daly looked at him in a daze, and then he said casually, If you are satisfied with my treatment, remember to ask Matthew to compensate me more. George Ken said something else, but Karen Daly didn't pay attention to it. She kept thinking about the illegitimate child of the Gook family. She had also vaguely heard of this person before, but she had never noticed him. But now it seemed that this person could come in handy. In this world, there was someone who wished more for the Gook family to fall than she did. As long as the Gook family could be overthrown, Samuel Daly would not have support anymore. It would be much easier to make him lose his reputation like this, and the things in her hands could be given to that person and let that person help Karen Daly deal with the Gook family. As for Kevin Kyle, he had his job and family. She did not want to involve him in the matters relating to the Gook family and the Daly family. If one day she could get rid of everything, she still hoped that Kevin Kyle would be a warm man, standing under the bright sunshine, looking at the most beautiful scenery, and she could be with the best person. After talking with George Ken for nearly an hour, Karen Daly felt much more relaxed and made a decision. Even if Samuel Daly's blood was flowing in her body, she couldn't let that man live to commit evil again. He should be punished. After coming out of the office, Karen Daly immediately looked at Kevin Kyle's worried eyes. She raised her eyebrows and smiled at him. Dr. Ken's charges are too high. Can you pay for me? If Karen Daly was willing to talk like this, it meant that the knot in her heart had been untied. Kevin Kyle rubbed her head and looked at George Ken. Just tell me how much it costs. George Ken leaned against the door and smiled awkwardly. I like Mrs. Kyle very much, so I'll spare her today's fee. Hearing George Ken said that he liked Karen Daly, Kevin Kyle pulled Karen Daly into his arms as if he was declaring ownership. George Ken smiled and said, Mr. Kyle, no one would take your wife away. If you want to do some PDA, please do it at home. I only accept patients here. It's best if you understand. Kevin Kyle smiled back at George Ken. It seemed to be a gentle smile, but it was full of warning. His wife was not allowed to be in anyone's mind, not even just a mere thought. Let's go, Kevin. Karen Daly tugged at him. I'm so hungry. Can you ask Aunt Jen to prepare some food for me? George Ken was too mysterious. At present, Karen Daly did not know whether he was an enemy or a friend. She did not want Kevin Kyle to have too much to do with him. In her opinion, Kevin Kyle was still on a bright path. She would not want anything unclean to touch him. Kevin Kyle and Karen Daly had just left when a woman walked out of another office. She looked somewhat similar to George Ken. Looking at Karen Daly's back, she sighed. Brother, is that the Daly family's second daughter? George Ken nodded and sighed. Yes, she is the second daughter of the Daly family. I didn't expect to meet her in this way. After coming back from George Ken's clinic, Karen Daly's condition was much better. She could eat and was willing to talk to Kevin Kyle. Kevin Kyle was very happy to see her gradually emerge from the shadow of her mother's death. He patted her head and said, I have something to do today. Have a good rest at home. Let's have together tonight. Okay. Karen Daly nodded and gave him a brilliant smile. After Kevin Kyle left, Karen Daly found a phone number. After thinking for a long time, she called the number. Once this number was called, there was no turning back. She would keep going until the Gook family and Samuel Daly were both ruined. Only then she would stop. The headquarters of the Rovio Corp was in Beeford City, and the Rovio Corp building stood high. It used to be the dreams of many people. Christine Daly had been waiting for a long time in the lobby on the first floor of the building on behalf of her father and the Gook family. Finally, she saw Kevin Kyle walking and surrounded by a group of people. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. Matthew, please wait. Kevin Kyle stopped and looked at Christine Daly coldly. Miss Christine, what can I do for you? Can you give me a few minutes? Just a few minutes. I want to talk to you. Christine Daly said cautiously, with her hands grasping the corner of her clothes to show her nervousness. Kevin Kyle looked at her and said politely, Miss Christine, if you have something to say, please say it now. Please give me 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. Christine Daly looked at him with tears in her eyes. Kevin Kyle glanced at Amelia Gray, who immediately asked the others to leave and clear the scene. Go ahead. Kevin Kyle stood straight and looked at Christine Daly coldly. Her tears could not arouse his pity. Christine Daly bit her lip, shed a drop of tear, and said, Matthew, the reason why I left you that year was that I thought you didn't remember me. Until now, when I saw that you had married Karen Daly, I knew that you still have me in your heart. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't marry Karen, who looked like me. Miss Christine, you really think too much. The reason why I agreed to let you talk now is to let you know that my wife is Karen. After saying that, Kevin Kyle turned around and left. The reason why he was willing to talk to Christine Daly was that he didn't want Christine Daly to think that he has thoughts about her. Marrying Karen Daly is something he decided to stick to for a lifetime. Christine Daly looked at Kevin Kyle's cold back and watched him walk away so decisively. She didn't feel uncomfortable because she expected this. If Matthew Kyle had some affection for her, he would not have met her only twice when he was her boyfriend. Perhaps he did not remember her name at all. Maybe he did not remember what she looked like. Even after knowing this, she still walked up to him because she had to. She could not disobey her father and Charlie. Chapter 112. After the heavy snowfall, the weather seemed to be colder. As Karen Daly sat in the warm room, her mood was not affected by the weather, but it actually got better. For some things, since she had made up her mind, she should do them without any hesitation or worries. And that Kevin Kyle, who stood under the sunlight and could give her warmth. Thinking of him, Karen Daly took out her mobile phone and wanted to call Kevin Kyle. Just when she took out her mobile phone, a call came in. It was a familiar and annoying phone number. Karen Daly stared at it for a while and refused to answer it. She didn't want to have any contact with the Daly family anymore. But Christine Daly certainly did not share the same sentiments. Karen Daly did not answer the phone, but she received another message. I am in the coffee shop on the 3rd floor of the hotel where you are staying. I brought some things left by my mother. Come out and meet me. Christine Daly knew Karen Daly's weakness. After sending out this message, she sat quietly in the cafe because she knew Karen Daly would definitely come. Sure enough, after waiting for about 10 minutes, Karen Daly arrived. Karen Daly was extremely afraid of the cold weather. In winter, she didn't care about staying pretty. She wore a thick down jacket and wrapped herself up like a dumpling. But it couldn't conceal her vital energy at all. Most of the time, Christine Daly was very jealous of Karen Daly. She was jealous that Karen Daly dared disobey her father's orders, that Karen Daly could get more love from her mother, and Karen Daly's academic performance had always been better than her. Karen Daly was always looked so attractive wherever she went. Some people say that jealousy is allowing other people's strengths to punish themselves. Christine Daly knew this very well, but she couldn't get out of this weird circle. She really wanted to destroy Karen Daly's life and trample the confident Karen Daly under her feet so that Karen Daly would look up to her and be jealous of her. However, after so many years, Karen Daly seemed to have become more outstanding and married such a rich, powerful man who loved her. What about Christine Daly herself? She was still pursuing the dream that she had been pursuing since she was a child. She hoped that Charlie could see her silently devote herself to him when she turned back, hoping that Charlie could help her put on her wedding dress. Charlie. At the thought of this man, complicated emotions welled up in Christine Daly's heart. Did she love him? Christine Daly asked herself this question, but she couldn't give an answer. Perhaps her father had instilled something into her when she was very young, saying that she would marry Charlie in the future. With this thought, she always felt that Charlie belonged to her. When she learned that he was engaged to Karen Daly, her first reaction was that Karen Daly took away the man who belonged to her. When she was young, Karen Daly took away the attention of all her friends around her. After growing up, Karen Daly took away the attention of all the men around her. How could she not be jealous of such an excellent sister in all aspects? Now that she was still stuck in a swamp of mud, she did not want to watch Karen Daly get happiness while she stood idle by. Karen, you're here. Facing Karen Daly, Christine Daly forced a smile. Even if she had already lost the game, she couldn't lose her dignity. Where's the stuff you were going to give me? Karen Daly stood and said, not willing to sit in the same table with Christine Daly. Take a seat. Christine Daly pointed to the opposite seat. I have something to tell you that you might be interested in. I'm not interested in anything you say. I just want to take back what my mother gave me. Karen Daly understood that Christine Daly could not say anything nice and did not want to make herself uncomfortable. What I want to say has something to do with Matthew. Don't you want to hear it? Looking at Karen Daly, Christine Daly said gently. He will tell me everything about him. It's not up to you as an outsider to blabber about. Looking at Christine Daly, Karen Daly said calmly. Would he tell you that he had slept with me before? Christine Daly smiled faintly and looked at Karen Daly provocatively. Oh, so you two had sex before? Karen Daly nodded with a smile, indicating that she understood. You don't believe it? Christine Daly felt that the bomb she threw out would definitely give Karen Daly a heavy blow, but she did not expect Karen Daly to ask so calmly. Christine Daly, don't talk nonsense with me. Even if you have slept with him, so what? Karen Daly looked at Christine Daly and sneered. It's all in the past. Now his wife is me. So what if you are his wife? You have been married for so long, but he has never touched you. Don't you have any other thoughts about this? Christine Daly came up with another plan after flunking her last. Last night, when Charlie was doing her, he told her that Karen Daly still did not have any sexual relationship with her husband. Kevin Kyle didn't look like a man with problems. and Karen Daly didn't look like a woman with problems. They had been together for so long, but they hadn't had sex as husband and wife. It was not hard for people to make up stories about them. Karen Daly did not want to talk to her anymore. There was no need to talk to an outsider about the relationship between herself and Kevin Kyle. Karen Daly did not speak. Christine Daly thought that her words had hit her trigger point, so she continued to say coquettishly, "You don't even know how fierce Matthew was in bed. When we first did it, I couldn't even get out of bed for 3 days." "Christine, I'm sorry. How could you be so shameless?" Karen Daly smiled and gave Christine Daly a piece of advice. Turned around and left. "Karen, don't you think that Kevin Kyle married you because you look like me? You are just my substitute." Christine Daly's voice came from behind. Karen Daly stopped walking and looked back at her. Christine Daly was still very beautiful, weak and gentle, but in Karen Daly's eyes, Christine Daly didn't have the dignity that a person should have. Christine Daly looked so tender and elegant, but the words that come out of her mouth were so distasteful and despicable. Karen Daly laughed out loud. This was her sister. She was once such a beautiful and confident woman who had hurt her greatly. Now she couldn't do anything. She could only use such boring and childish words to attack her. She really didn't know if she was hateful or pitiful. In fact, before coming here, Karen Daly had thought that Christine Daly was using her mother's relics as a pretense, but tried rationalizing that Christine Daly was also her mother's daughter. She would not go too far. It turned out that she was too stupid and naive to believe that Christine Daly still had a little bit of humanity. After walking out of the cafe, Karen Daly took out her mobile phone and called Kevin Kyle. She dialed his number. After a beep, Kevin Kyle's low and sexy voice came from the phone. "Karen?" Chapter 113. Hearing Kevin Kyle's voice, Christine Daly's words floated in Karen Daly's mind, and she couldn't stop laughing. "What's wrong?" Hearing Karen Daly's laughter, Kevin Kyle's voice became louder. "Mr. Kyle, some woman praised your skill on the bed just now." Karen Daly smiled and threw out such a sentence without conscience. Kevin Kyle had always been thoughtful. When he heard Karen Daly's words, he immediately realized that someone must have lied to her. Immediately, his face darkened, and he quickly explained, "I didn't. I'm joking." Before he could finish his words, Karen Daly interrupted him with a smile. She added, "I believe you. Believe all your words. Believe all your promises." Even if Kevin Kyle and Christine Daly had a past, it was all in the past, and Karen Daly was Kevin Kyle's present and future. After she said that, Karen Daly seemed to hear Kevin Kyle breathe a sigh of relief. She smiled again and said, "Mr. Kyle, Mrs. Kyle wants to invite you out for a walk. Will you agree?" Kevin Kyle responded. "Do you agree or not?" Karen Daly knew what he meant, but she had to force him to say more words. "Okay. Snow Mountain on the west side. I'll go there first. When you're done with your work, come over." After the call with Kevin Kyle, Karen Daly waved her hand and hailed a taxi to go straight to Westside Snow Mountain, a famous tourist attraction. Westside Snow Mountain was a very famous tourist attraction in Beaufort City. It attracted thousands of tourists every year. But they all went to the north side of the mountain. Few people knew that the southern side had the most beautiful view instead. The south side was not developed. The scenery was beautiful, the snow piled up, and the snow was as white as it can be. More importantly, there was an ice lake. However, it was forbidden for tourists to enter and exit the south side, but Karen Daly knew a secret passage that could successfully avoid the management staff's view and come to the undeveloped beautiful place. In the past, Karen Daly would come here alone every winter, carrying a drawing board and a brush as she sat next to the ice lake, outlining the most beautiful fairy tale in her heart. Karen Daly first came to the tourist service area of the main entrance of the scenic area. The snow had just stopped and there were a lot of tourists. The scenery was covered by human heads. Fortunately, she didn't ask Kevin Kyle to squeeze with these people, but took him to the small world that only she knew. It didn't take long for Kevin Kyle to arrive. He was always in a silver gray suit. He had a lot of them. No one knew if he liked it or was too lazy to change anything else. Because of the cold weather, he was wearing a black coat outside. And because of his height, the coat made him look more elegant. What an outstanding and elegant man. Even in the vast sea of people, he was always the most eye-catching one. As soon as he arrived, many people's eyes fell on him, and there were some side remarks. Her clear eyes were fixed on him, and there was a smile on her face. This excellent man was hers. She left her mark on his marriage certificate and on his body. Similarly, in the crowd, Kevin Kyle also found her. She was also so eye-catching, but she didn't know it. "Mr. Kyle, Mrs. Kyle is here." She smiled and waved to him, seemingly announcing to others that this man was hers, and everyone else should back off. Kevin Kyle walked over. There was a hint of tenderness in his eyes when he saw her. He asked, "Are you cold?" "It's cold." She winked at him playfully. The temperature was low, and her body was cold, but with him around, she felt warm. As he spoke, he was about to take off his coat. Karen Daly grabbed his hand, stopped his action, and got into his arms. "If you hold me like this, I won't feel cold." Kevin Kyle stopped taking off his clothes, moved his arms around her, and lowered his head to kiss her forehead. Karen Daly raised her head and kissed him on the corner of his mouth. Then he smiled playfully at her. "That's it. After that, her face was unconsciously stained with pink hues, a seductive luster like she was encouraging Kevin Kyle. Kevin Kyle lowered his head and kissed her on the face. Are you satisfied now? What? These words sounded like a joke. Didn't he want to kiss her at all? Karen, he called her name again. Huh? Karen Daly blinked at him. You look pretty, especially when you smile, he said. This kind of Karen was full of vitality and dazzling, which made her the center of attention. This was the first time that Kevin Kyle praised her so seriously and directly. Karen Daly felt shy and said, You also look good when you smile. Kevin Kyle always had a cold expression on his face. Everyone seldom saw him smiling. She had seen his smile only once or twice. His smile was not only good-looking, but also intoxicating. It was like a dream. Karen Daly took his hand and held it in hers, letting him hold her too. Let's go. I'll take you to a secret place. Kevin Kyle did not ask where she was going to take him. He would accompany her to the end of his life. After walking for a while, they went further and further, but still did not hear Kevin Kyle's words. Karen Daly looked up at him and said, Mr. Kyle, why don't you ask where am I going to take you? Anywhere. As long as it was the place where you asked me to go. Why don't you have any curiosity? Karen Daly pouted to him discontentedly. Since he didn't ask, she would not tell. She held hands with Kevin Kyle, like they were walking to the end of the world. When they reached the end of the path and climbed over a small hill, he was suddenly enlightened. In front of him stood a frozen lake. Karen Daly pointed at the lake and said, Look at these ice cubes. They are crystal clear, and you can see the plants under them. They are like frozen lives, making people feel as if these water weeds can come alive again at the beginning of spring. Karen Daly was excited, but she did not hear Kevin Kyle's response. She turned around and looked at him. Don't you think it's very beautiful? It's very beautiful, said Kevin Kyle. However, no matter how beautiful the scenery was, in his opinion, it was not even 1/10 better than the beauty of the person beside him. She was beautiful and lively. It was hard to describe her beauty. His heart seemed to calm down when he saw her smile. He could not see the complicated world, but could only see her. Kevin Kyle had traveled all over the world, and he had seen much more beautiful scenery than this one. But at this moment, because of the additional person in this scenery, it had become the most beautiful scenery in his mind. Chapter 114, Do you like it? Karen Daly looked at Kevin Kyle and asked eagerly, was he interested in her or the scenery here? Yes. Kevin Kyle replied with one word. He liked her and the scenery. Hearing the satisfying answer, Karen Daly was extremely happy. She grabbed Kevin Kyle's hand and said, Mr. Kyle, I'll take you to dig the treasure. Treasure? Kevin Kyle felt that this was a game that only children could play, but he did not refuse and followed her footsteps. Karen Daly held his hand and introduced the game while walking. In fact, this place was discovered by my mother. Then she brought me here. When she didn't want to come here anymore, I was the only one who came. Speaking of her mother, Karen Daly had a moment of sadness, but soon she smiled brightly. She would live well and live better than before, so that she could be worthy of the mother who used her life to protect her. I'll be with you in the future. Kevin Kyle slightly held her tighter and said softly, I'll accompany you in the future. The short sentence was Kevin Kyle's usual way of speaking. Every word was loud and clear, and each word was tapping on Karen Daly's heart. In the past, Karen Daly had heard people say that a man who only knew sweet talk to make girls happy might not be reliable. In fact, those men who never said nice words with their mouths, but used practical actions to express themselves would be reliable. And her Kevin Kyle. Yes, it was her Kevin Kyle, a reliable man. Thinking about what Kevin Kyle had done to her these days, the smile on her face became more brilliant and charming. She added, My mom also has named the ice lake. Guess what is it? Baby Karen? With Karen's mother's love for her, Kevin Kyle could think of this name. Baby Karen? The two words gently came out of Kevin Kyle's mouth, casual yet endearing, which sounded charming. Her nickname was called out by Kevin Kyle, which made Karen Daly's heart pound faster. She blushed again. When her mother called her Baby Karen, it was full of love, as if she was the whole world for her mother. When Faye Reed called her Baby Karen, it was a friendship that had lasted for nearly 10 years. No one would let go of it. However, Kevin Kyle never called her that. Maybe their relationship had not yet become so intimate, or maybe his character was not used to calling her nickname. However, compared with Baby Karen, she preferred him to call her Mrs. Kyle. Mr. Kyle, Mrs. Kyle, this was their recognition of each other's identity. She rubbed her hot face and said, No, guess it again. Kevin Kyle thought about it seriously. He really could not think of another name given by her mother. Take a guess. I'll give you 5 chances, Karen Daly said. She finally took him out to have a look, but he was still so quiet. It was always her talking alone. Kevin Kyle thought for a moment and said, Karen Daly? Karen Daly rolled her eyes. Mr. Kyle, can we think more romantically? Kevin Kyle thought about it seriously and finally shook his head. Big fool. Karen Daly glared at him with disdain and said, Mom named the ice lake Sea of Love. Her mother named the ice lake as the Sea of Love, not just a typical romantic love, but a love that includes all the positive feelings, family affection, love, friendship. Whether it was love, family affection, or friendship, Each kind of emotion should be the most beautiful and purest. When her mother named the ice lake, it should be the same meaning. However, in their family, the husband was not like a husband, the father was not like a father, and the sister was not like a sister. The family affection had long been obliterated by them. Kevin Kyle responded, indicating that he understood. Huh? That's all? Didn't he ask her why she wanted to use the same? She really wanted to bite him hard. What's wrong? Seeing Karen Daly's angry look, Kevin Kyle did not realize what was wrong. Kevin Kyle, why don't you ask me why my mom named this? Why? Karen Daly glared at him, shook off her hands, and walked forward. Now, she hypothesized that the reason why Kevin Kyle didn't get married before must be because he often made the girls angry until he met her. Thinking that he might not get married because of these reasons, Karen Daly felt sweet again in her heart. It was precisely because his emotional intelligence was not high enough that he did not marry another woman before he met her. Karen Daly turned back to him and held his arm. Don't be depressed. I won't dislike you. Kevin Kyle. They held each other's fingers and walked slowly along the lakeside. After a long time, they came to a big tree. Karen Daly found 2 branches and handed one to Kevin Kyle. After searching for an intended spot, she picked up the branch and began to dig the soil. Mr. Kyle, let's dig the treasure. Kevin Kyle had never played this kind of childish game, even when he was very young. Now he was almost in his early 30s, but he was dragged by his wife to have fun. However, he did not feel bored. On the contrary, there was a feeling of unspeakable complexity in his heart. It doesn't matter how boring or childish the activity could be, but it most definitely would be important who you're performing the activity with. After digging for a while, a copper box appeared in front of them. Karen Daly said with a smile, I finally dug you out. What? Seeing Karen Daly's excited look, Kevin Kyle jumped at his curiosity. Baby. Karen Daly opened the box carefully. There was a small wooden box in the box. After opening layers of packaging, Karen Daly took out a ring and said, Look, this is the treasure I wanted you to find here today. Kevin Kyle sighed silently. It turned out that Karen Daly's childhood was still the same as that of many children. She liked to play games and learn to hide things. Give me your hand, Karen Daly said. Kevin Kyle reached out to her. She grabbed his hand and put the ring into his ring finger. This is for you. You can wear it. Don't take it off in the future. She did not tell him that her mother had buried this ring with her in the past. At that time, her mother patted her head and said to her, Karen, when you meet a man who sincerely treats you well in the future, if you want to spend your whole life with him, dig it out and give it to him. At that time, she didn't know why she didn't want to dig it out and give it to Charlie. Until she met Kevin Kyle, the idea popped up. So by gifting him with this ring, it would signify his authenticity and loyalty towards Kevin Kyle. Kevin Kyle, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Do you hear me? Chapter 115. Kevin Kyle looked at the ring that Karen Daly had put on him. It was very old and had no shine. It looked a little old. He asked, Where did you get this from? Instead of answering, she leaned over and kissed him, but immediately ran away. She blinked her big bright eyes and looked at him with a smile. You don't want to say? Kevin Kyle asked. No, Karen Daly nodded. It's a secret. Her mother told her that as long as she handed over the ring, she would be happy with that man for the rest of her life. This was her mother's blessing to her, so she couldn't say it out loud. If she said it out, it wouldn't be true. Since she didn't want to say it, Kevin Kyle didn't ask further anymore. He just looked at her hands. Seeing her empty hands, he just realized that they had registered for marriage for so long, and he did not even prepare a wedding band for her. Karen Daly pointed to the front and said, There is still a large open space over there. The snow is very thick and we can build a snowman together. Are you willing to go with me? Kevin Kyle nodded. As long as she was happy, he was willing to accompany her anywhere. Karen Daly ran to his side and grabbed his arm. However, Kevin Kyle suddenly reached out his arm. He grabbed the back of her head, lowered his head, and kissed her, unwilling to let go for a long time. Karen Daly pounded his back. This man was really petty sometimes. She just snuck a quick kiss earlier, and he returned a kiss in this way. The kiss lasted for a long time. Kevin Kyle let Karen Daly go. Her face was flushed and her heart was beating faster. He reached out and touched her red and swollen lips that he kissed. I'll try my best to accommodate you in the future, he said in a low voice. What? Karen Daly was taken aback. It turned out that if this man thought that he didn't kiss her, she would be dissatisfied, so he kissed her. Idiot. Karen Daly raised her foot and stomped him hard. She was so angry that she ran away. Kevin Kyle looked at her back, his sexy thin lips slightly raised, and his usually cold eyes were full of smiles. It felt good to tease her occasionally. After separating from Karen Daly, Christine Daly went to the mall to buy some skincare products. She was always generous when it came to skincare. This face was her capital. She had to take good care of it. Only then could she maintain her youthful appearance for a long time. Others did not know what Daly family's real story was like, but they thought Daly family lived a bright life from the outside. Christine Daly's car was a BMW. It was not a very good luxury car, but it was not cheap. The Daly family, who had nothing to show off, must have some things to support their reputation. Otherwise, how could they blend with the upper class? Miss Christine, You are back. The newly hired maid quickly took the bag from her hand and said, Dinner is ready. Mr. Samuel has been waiting for you for a long time. I see. In front of the servants, Christine Daly looked friendly. When she came to the door, she changed her shoes and walked into the living room. Seeing Samuel Daly sitting there, she walked over and called softly, Dad. Samuel Daly stood up and raised his hand to slap Christine Daly. The speed was so fast that Christine Daly did not have time to react at all. Clap, with a loud slap, a clear palm print appeared on Christine Daly's face. She covered her painful face and looked at the man who hit her with tears. Her lips trembled slightly. Dad, why do you hit me? You can't even handle a man. What else can you do? Samuel Daly said, raising his hand and slapped Christine Daly hard again. Dad, I'm your daughter. My daughter? Samuel Daly cried out loud as he slapped. He beat and scolded. I have spent more than 20 years raising you and sent you to study abroad, but you can't even save your previous man. Do you think I have too much money or what? Dad. Christine Daly was thin and weak, and her body could not withstand it. At this time, she was slapped twice by Samuel Daly. She only felt darkness before her eyes and did not remember what happened after. When Christine Daly was conscious, she opened her eyes and saw Charlie sitting by her bed. Charlie. She had never thought that she would see Charlie at first sight when she woke up. She was so excited that she could not speak a word. She hurriedly sat up and reached out to grab Charlie tightly, as if she had a ray of hope. You are so weak, you can sleep for a few hours after just being slapped. Charlie looked at her and said this calmly. Obviously, things were not going well as Christine Daly expected. Christine Daly bit her lip and said cautiously, Why did you come to see me? Charlie sneered. Leo Kyle doesn't even want to look at you. What do you think I have to do with you? Christine Daly still wanted to say something, but she couldn't say it out of bitterness. She had always known that in her father's and Charlie's hearts, she could be used as a tool to seduce Leo Kyle. Once she succeeded, she would be a great hero. They would both treat her decently, and maybe they would give her anything she wants. But now she failed to seduce Leo Kyle. As Charlie said, Leo Kyle was reluctant to take a look at her. She failed deeply and lost her pride. Christine Daly. Charlie grabbed her chin, pinched it hard, and his looks were fierce. With your attractive figure and your body that can drive men crazy, why didn't Kevin Kyle want to look at you more? Charlie, you are hurting me, Christine Daly said with tears, but she did not get any pity from Charlie. Does it hurt you? Do you still have the right to say that it hurts? Charlie grabbed Christine Daly's hair and pulled her up. Go clean up. I don't care what method you use. I must make Leo Kyle cancel the statement that he will not cooperate with the Goop Corp forever. Charlie, let go of me first. Christine Daly was thin and powerless. Charlie picked her up like a chicken. You damn useless woman. You didn't complete your task. How dare you come back? Charlie had completely lost his mind. He grabbed Christine Daly's hair with one hand and slapped her hard with the other. Charlie, are you crazy? Why did you hit me? In the past, Charlie didn't love her, so he didn't care about her. However, he didn't hit her then. He must be crazy today. Yeah, I'm crazy. I'll show you how crazy I can get. Charlie raised his foot and kicked Christine Daly's abdomen. Charlie kicked over, and Christine Daly felt dizzy again. It took a while for her to recover. She saw Samuel Daly standing at the door of the room from the corner of her eyes. Dad, she instinctively asked Samuel Daly for help, but he stood there motionless, as if he was looking at a joke.